Well, hello and welcome to I Love Gay today. And this is yet another interview in our series, Voices of India. We were recently in India and we had an opportunity to meet some incredible people there. And they're all kind of leaders in the LGBTQ movement in India, focused on activism and pride and business. And today we're joined with Delshad Master. How are you?
I'm great, Matt. Thank you for having me here at
It's
ILoveGay.
it's so great to meet you. I know I was hoping to make it to you're further south in India, correct?
Yes,
Yes. So
that's correct.
I didn't make it there on this trip, but hopefully on another trip I'll be able to come down and be able to meet folks like yourself in person.
Certainly, absolutely. We'll look forward to it.
But what's interesting, before anything else, you were probably my first interview I've ever had. You're a Indian Air Force veteran and a squadron leader at that. So that
That's
must have
correct.
really given you a foundation for everything you're doing here today.
Yes, so one of the best diversities that you can find in India, like a microcosm of everything Indian, can be found within the armed forces of the country because the armed forces is a representation of every state, every language, every culture, a person from the furthest corners, men, women. Unfortunately, we don't yet have complete gender diversity in the armed forces, but it'll probably get there. In terms even of the roles that we play, we are fairly diverse and we are fairly inclusive, especially the Indian Air Force. I think there is not a single bastion that women haven't yet taken on, so in those terms, yes, there is a lot of diversity, a lot of inclusion in the armed forces itself, and that has helped me going forward into my second career path.
Which is diversity, equity, inclusion. But yeah, you seem to have really like taken a lead in whether it's public speaking on this subject or just helping companies navigate
Mhm.
and learn, how to speak to us and reach us. And so, yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
So it all started accidentally. It was not planned as moving into the DE and I consulting space. It started with me editing a magazine, LGBTQ magazine. It was a digital magazine, a not-for-profit one. And while I was doing that, I got to interview a lot of people because a lot of human interest stories were written by me. So I would interview the person or the sibling of the queer person or the parent of the queer person or the queer person themselves and write their entire human interest story. And one of the threads that ran common across all stories, Matt, was the fact that almost every queer person that I spoke to had contemplated or attempted suicide at least twice in their lifetime. So that completely shook me. That got me thinking. Here is a community of people who want to kill themselves just because they're not even accepted by their first circle of loved ones, that is your immediate family. And they just simply want to end their lives for being who they are or for who they choose to love. And that I felt was completely unfair. Which is why going forward, I simply started by talking about it. I simply started, passionately enunciating the pain points that this community faced. And by, as days went by, I began thinking if this passion could actually be converted into a viable profession. And that's when I received a lot of encouragement from friends and well-wishers telling me this is the need of the hour. This is what companies will pay you for. This is what people don't know, don't understand, and need someone to educate them about. So that's how the transition happened from something that I was simply passionate about, to something that I simply wanted to tell others, to transitioning into a career where I sensitize people from the corporates, I sensitize academia or professional associations, and now even counsel parents and persons from the queer community. So that's how the transition happened. One thing after the other kept getting added on, but yeah, the passion and the profession sort of came together.
Yeah, I see that. And then when you were talking about, especially trying to make a difference, that's where it seems like you really focus a lot on LGBT youth, and you've even got a book, Help, My Kid's Queer. I'm sure that's all part of it.
That's correct. Matt, once again to reiterate, the biggest pain point I realized which the queer community faced was the very first social circle of security, which is your immediate family, does not accept you. And I wouldn't completely blame them, because the acceptance stems out of the unacceptance, or the non-acceptance stems from ignorance. They simply do not understand what their child says when the child says, I am gay, or I am bisexual, or I feel like a woman, or I feel like a man. I have a man's body but I feel like a woman, or vice versa. People couldn't wrap their head around it. And that's why I felt the need to educate parents. So parents form the first circle. If a parent, or even if one among the couple, even if one parent stands by the child, the amount of self-esteem and self-confidence that it raises in the child, they can almost take on the world. They can take on any sort of hazing, any sort of bullying. They could be called names and they can still come home smiling, knowing that someone at home understands and someone at home is ready to accept. So your comfort space, your comfort zone, if you don't even feel welcome and accepted there, how are you going to face the world? So that was my inspiration behind this book that I'm currently on to, Help My Kids Queer. The idea is to educate parents, to allay all their fears, to get rid of the ignorance that they have, and thereby bring in more acceptance. And if parents accept it, I'm sure one after the other, the society would accept it as a whole.
It's interesting how in this global world that we're in, and how we're so connected and we're sharing ideas, that everything you've spoken of right now would resonate immediately and contemporarily in the U.S. as well, and other parts of the world. Just yesterday, there was the whole in Florida. I don't know if you saw that. It was called the "Don't Say Gay" bill, and it was all about. It's really focused on youth in schools, and it was a big deal, and it passed, unfortunately, and it was not a good thing. But everything you've just spoken of and said was almost exactly the same. Some of the same issues that they're dealing with in parts of our country today.
Right. So I feel the issue is universal, and like I said, it simply stems from ignorance. It differs from the social construct and the social fabric of a society may differ from one nationality to another, but the base problem remains the same across the board. A little here, a little there might be different depending upon the culture or the social system that you come from. But yes, by and large, it is ignorance which alienates the parents from the child, and therefore the child feels alienated from the rest of the world, and therefore all the the spiral, the depression, the isolation, the self-loathing, the self-harming, suicidal thoughts, and unfortunately finally the attempt at suicide.
No, it's well put. As people, I think we have much more in common than we have differences, and we should learn to embrace those more.
Absolutely.
But now, tell us also in your background, you're labeled Queer Sensitization Catalyst, and so you kind of that seems to have, out of everything you've spoken of and how you've evolved, that seems to speak to who you are today.
Yes. So, Matt, when I began on this journey, I realized that I wanted a moniker for myself, which was one, unique, but not just unique. It had to also be functional. So it's not just unique in order to be unique, but it should also immediately convey to the person what I do and who I am. Right? And which is why these three words, because this is like a 3-second pitch, who am I? I'm Delshad Master, a queer sensitization catalyst. So queer is the community I talk about and I'm passionate about. Sensitization is what I do, and the catalyst is because I am an ally. So I don't belong completely to the community, but I try to be a bridge between cisgendered heterosexuals who don't get it, to a bridge to the queer community. So that's how the three words sort of came to be. And It's a moniker and a pitch, so to say. So.
Well, you've learned how to not only public speaking and your pitch and so forth. You've done that well. Yesterday we interviewed Suresh Ramdas, who's also lives in your part of the world, and
Yes.
but you are both leaders in the Rainbow Toastmasters.
That's correct. So both of us are friends, and incidentally, we happen to live in the same city as well. We are both from Bangalore. Suresh lives here. We met at Rainbow Toastmasters, instantly became friends. In a way, we both do the same thing. Suresh, of course, has achieved so much more. He's gone on to be Mr. Gay India 2019, and he is, from that position of authority, he has gone around spreading the message in the way that, he thinks fit, and from that sort of pedestal. And he also is very active on the corporate diversity and inclusion scene. That's where even I'm trying to, make my inroads. So largely the message is the same. It's all about love, acceptance, and also doing away with your ignorance about the community. Our paths might be slightly divergent, but largely we converge at the same message, at the same so the message largely remains the same. The paths may differ a bit, but Suresh and I are very good friends, and we continue to do our own good work in our own spheres of influence.
I love that. So, no, this is amazing. And mostly I'm really just happy you were able to take a few moments of your time and kind of share some of your story with our audience here.
I'm just glad, Matt. I'm grateful and glad to have me here. Thank you so much. And I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved sharing my story with you and your audience.
Well,
thank you so much.
Like I said, I look forward to hopefully meeting in person someday soon.
Certainly, certainly. Next time you're in Bangalore, you must hit me up you just let me know over LinkedIn or WhatsApp, and then we could meet up.
Exactly. Well, thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you.
So good.